Good morning, everybody. Yeah, I like that analogy. Switzerland's not really been able to maximize the oil wells. There's not a plenish of oil here in Switzerland, but there certainly is great innovation. There's great technology, and it's great to be here in what I see as a country of excellence for manufacturing, as well as an area here of innovation. And certainly maybe some of those two ingredients hold some of the keys to being successful and ultimately monetizing data or monetizing information. So yeah, I'm Ian Wood, I work at Veritas, and I look after something we call the business practice. And I've been working in the data management space. Used to be pretty damn boring, to be honest, but it's now pretty damn interesting. And I've worked in that space for over 20 years. And what I want to really talk about is organizations that are embracing this new digital world versus those that are perhaps rather digitally disrupted and trying to think of how they monetize information. So we've all hopefully had a fantastic Christmas. It's what, 15, 16 days past Christmas? I don't know when we can stop celebrating. My family certainly loved Christmas. Our Christmas tree was up and running on the 1st of December and got taken down only last week. But hopefully everybody got great Christmas gifts and their children were pretty happy. But I want to talk about the world of Industry 4.0 because the Christmas gifts we're giving our kids now are very different to where I grew up and what I had. And take, for example, the average teddy bear. You can no longer give a teddy bear to a child or a teddy bear to my daughter. It has to be an internet-connected teddy bear. And in today's world, this internet-connected teddy bear does fantastic things. In fact, there's an organization out in Silicon Valley called Cloud Pets. Not sure if you've heard of it. They have made their way to the UK. A fantastic device, a teddy bear that's internet connected. It's great for me. I can send videos to my daughter. I get to travel a lot. Great for me. Sad for my family life. But I can stay connected with my daughter by sending videos. I can do that on my mobile phone. Certainly, a daughter of 3 years old probably can work a mobile phone now, but she will interact a lot better with a teddy bear. She pushes the paw of the teddy bear and daddy's voice comes over there. Isn't that fantastic? But it comes with some stark challenges. Cloud Pets in December 2016, so a year and a half ago, they got hacked, right? The hackers sent them a little note because, of course, in the world of monetizing information, they need to move fast. They moved really quickly. They put the platform out there as an IoT toy company in Silicon Valley, launched out the service. Hackers got to it pretty quickly, hacked into their MongoDB environment, put a little note there saying, we were here, you better sort that out. They ignored that note, and in March, all their data was stolen and held for ransom. So what's the problem with that? Well, the problem for me, right, is, I don't know about you, for me, protecting my children comes to my needs list right at the top. Their data getting stolen, when I read that article, hits a nerve. And that's some of the stark reality that Industry 4.0 brings, is protecting information. All of that personal data, all of those videos, all of their interactivity is lost and stolen into the world, and it's a scary place. And that's all personal data. Now, you're possibly sitting here as leads of great industry and saying it's a great story. What does it mean to my organization? How do we take this forward? Well, I argue that data privacy will be one of the key challenges to monetizing information in the future. Because data privacy and the data privacy regulations are changing drastically. In 133 days, that's 2 days old because I copied and pasted the wrong counter, 133 days from now, the global or the EU will bring in general data protection regulations that will ultimately enforce a lot more stricter regulations on data privacy. For Cloud Pets, what does that mean? It would have meant a fine of up to 4% of their annualized turnover, probably put them out of business. Now, the regulators won't be doing that, we all know that. However, that regulatory landscape of protecting personal data is changing. And it's something that, as you look at Industry 4.0, as this oil of the 21st century, which is data, fuels it, we've got to protect it, and we have to manage it. So switching gear, yes, great image here, something coined by The Economist a long time ago. the world's most valuable resource is no longer oil, it's information. Oil was that resource that fueled the industrial revolutions in the 20th century. Information is going to fuel the digital revolution of the 21st century. That's what it's all about. And those that can monetize, those that can manage data, that will extract information, that provides unique insights, will be the successful organizations over those that will be digitally disrupted, trying to understand how they secure and manage information. So ultimately, it's important to foster a culture within any organization that allows the developers, the innovation to happen fast and securely, and have things like privacy by design built into whatever you do. So where's this data going to come from, right? So this data is going to come from new sources today. It comes from what we call unstructured data. When I grew up in this world of IT 20 years ago, everything was more structured data. Three-tier applications. Application writes data to a structured database, stores data on a storage device. The world today no longer is that. The world today is unstructured data coming from many different sources, storing on many different devices, fragmented around the world. 80% of data that exists will be unstructured in 2 years' time. And that's only set to explode. IDC, an analyst firm, about 5 years ago said that the digital universe will be around about 44 zettabytes in 2020. And everybody laughed at them and said it was a sensational statistic because it's too much data. We can't cope with that data. They revised that last year to be 54 zettabytes in 2020. So it's growing faster than they estimated. And that data is going to be fragmented. It's not going to live in one source. We talked about that. It's going to live in multiple sources. And we have this great concept called the cloud. And the cloud is that digital enabler. It is that infrastructure that gives you the agility to go and do what you need to do fast, securely, and at a low cost. So data won't be spread in one cloud. IT industry stumbled upon cloud, created something we call the hybrid cloud. That was not a strategy, that was how you ended up. Today, when I speak to organizations, they have what we call a multi-cloud strategy. And in Switzerland, they lead with multi-cloud strategy, because in Switzerland, we know that 92% of organizations out there for 2018 have a multi-cloud strategy. You're selecting the cloud providers for your information and your applications that see fit, right? That do the right purpose. You'll go to one provider for the value they provide, and you'll want to switch from that provider to another provider with a different value. You could see a world of moving data around the cloud based on specific workload requirements and use cases. And 6% of organizations in Switzerland today have an all-in-the-cloud strategy, right? In other words, everything's in the cloud because they're born in the cloud. They're new organizations. They don't understand what IT infrastructure looks like in their own environment. Does not compute. Don't understand that. They go and outsource all IT requirements to cloud providers. So let's look at those attributes of organizations that are digitally disrupted versus digitally transformed. So to me, when I look at a digitally disrupted organization, what do I see? I see an organization that has unplanned downtime and has unplanned security breaches. I see airlines where people are sitting like myself last year, sitting in the airport at Heathrow because their booking application goes down, because that's an unplanned downtime. Why? Because there's an application that's in India that they didn't calculate, they didn't do the risk assessment, and they didn't do any testing if things go wrong. And all the passengers sat in Heathrow Airport, stranded, can't get to their loved ones, can't get to their business meeting. And what does that do? It loses brand, right? Because people will fire you and go to the supplier that they trust to be available at all times, because you've damaged their holiday, you've damaged their business meeting. Or like Cloud Pets, you've been breached, and again, that's going to have brand reputation. How many people go back and buy more toys from an organization that's known to be breached? Those organizations that are digitally disrupted are also slow to develop applications. The world we live in now, to innovate is important. Therefore, you can expect to be driving many application innovation projects, and you can expect only one of those projects out of 10 to be successful. But they're slow and sluggish to get those applications developed. And then finally, the big one that I'm really passionate about, they have too much data. We have way too much data and not enough information. We did a survey called the Databerg. Think of an iceberg. At the bottom of the iceberg is where you can't see. That is what we call dark data. Globally today, 54% of all data is dark. People have no idea what the value is of that data. They can't tell the difference between a cat video and their financial records, in essence. And that's pretty scary. Good news in Switzerland, 40% of the data is dark. Doing better, but it's still an awful amount of data. So organizations that are digitally transformed, well, they master that digital experience because they know that's where their consumers work with them. That's where their business is. It's in the experiences that we have. That attracts new customers and that retains organizations for longer. They're agile, they leverage cloud, they have DevOps functions, they're developing applications, they have a fail-fast mindset. Let's develop things quickly with a mindset that's going to fail, but I'd rather fail quickly than starve to death over time. So they can learn from that failure and innovate. And they extract insights. They harness the power of that information and they extract the insights. They understand that their data is dark and they can tell us where that data is dark and they can start putting in tools and tricks to go and fix that problem. So I thought of this idea of the 20th century was fueled by oil, the 21st century is fueled by information. I wanted to do some contrasts. So I thought if I was an oil company and I set myself up, what did I do? Well, it was all about finding the natural resources. It was then about refining those natural resources and then monetizing that natural resource so that I could make money. That's what they were doing. Pretty basic terms, right? Please don't critique me about the real, this is just a high-level overview. But when I compare oil to information, we're not doing that well, are we? Right? We can't tell you where all that data is, right? I talked about all that dark data, but I can tell you an oil company knows where the oil fields are. And certainly they're looking for new oil fields so that they can monetize. That's where they're spending their money in research and development and discovery to find new oil fields. We don't often do that, do we? So the number one thing I would say as a best practice when I look to harness the power of information is start to shine a light on all your data. Just like the oil company did by discovering oil fields, it's important to understand where your data is. You probably know where your structured data is, right? That's your applications writing into your databases. What you may not know is where these new sources of data are, where this unstructured data sources are. And that's where you can make money out of that, or you can reduce your risk, because you may have some data lying where you don't really want it to be sitting. The second thing is around refining, right? So again, the oil company would refine that crude oil to different products. They look at different products that they can make from that oil. And in the world we live today with digital transformation in IT, we have a lot of infrastructure that is built for the 20th century in IT even. It's old, ancient infrastructure. We look at monolithic storage devices that connect data and applications designed for structured data. We don't necessarily have all the new innovation. We don't have data sources and the way we store our data so we can refine it in a new modern way that allows you to do things like classification. As the data is stored, I can understand the value of that data. What happens today is a lot of data is where great stuff gets stored and goes to die, rather than making that data live and classifying that data as it gets stored down into those infrastructures. And then finally, we look at managing the supply chain. And again, here, we don't really in IT manage our cloud providers. How many out there have looked really at the deep level of detail around a cloud supplier's contract? How many people think of a cloud mobility or cloud portability strategy? Most are thinking, I need to get into the cloud. You're not thinking, how do I get out of the cloud? It's not very agile. So it's important to manage and embrace the multi-cloud, right? But make sure you have level of control. Make sure you understand the contracts with your cloud providers. Make sure they don't penalize you from moving away from them because they want to lock you in. Make sure that those contracts are right there. Make sure you have technology, right, that can make your workloads portable, that can move data quickly into the cloud, but also move data out of the cloud when you need it. And those are key areas to help you managing that supply of information. So this was an innovative way, I thought, of just linking oil through to information and some ideas we can have in IT. So my final slide really is, what do we do, Veritas? So we allow organizations to harness the power of information. So we've been doing that for 20 decades. What we do is we do data and information management. And we've done that 20 decades ago when I joined the organization for 3-tier applications that I talked about, but more importantly, we do that today for all those infrastructures that are new, modern architecture and workloads. So when you think of Veritas, I'd like to say you think of us to allow you to do 3 things, right? Number 1, what can we do? We can allow you greater visibility on your data sources, whether they're structured or unstructured data sources. We can shine a light on that dark data and help you monetize that data or save money by removing all the rubbish data you may have. We allow you to accelerate to the cloud, right? But not only accelerate to the cloud, we give you that portability to move from the cloud. And then finally, we've got great trust and pedigree from the past that we bring right into the future, as Gartner would say, the Mode 2 world, with all these new applications and architectures. We allow you to manage all of that in the new world today. So thank you very much for your time. Hope you found it interesting. A lot of the Veritas folks are out here, the experts are out here for the day, so please seek them out if you've got any further questions. Thank you.